morning. I have to make a slight correction. You referred to me as a therapist and a psychotherapist, and I do function a lot in that way, and it comes from the fact that when I listen to people talk about their bodies, my initial intake sometimes is an hour and a half. That's on the short side. Sometimes it's 2. Very often it's 3. I think the longest was 7 or 8 hours with a Native American woman who came north to die of cancer. And her body had taken on so much from the culture and how her land had been treated, which is an extension of her body. And in 8 hours of listening to her, she was able to figure out, without my giving her any advice, exactly what she needed to do, which was to go back to the medicine man of her own culture and be healed. And she is 7 or 8 years later, quite well and happy. This is what listening to each other can do. So my practice as a body fixer, as an acupuncturist, an herbalist, a homeopath, trained in massage therapy and yoga and all those woo-woo things, has developed into being a listener. And I now often have people come in for things that are not body related and just listen to them. So that's a little bit of background about how I came to be doing what I'm doing. You have been hit hard this month. You built your lives along a river, and the river changed. You built your lives around certain people, and those people and their dear, sweet bodies that you came to love are gone. Things that seemed certain and solid don't seem as certain and solid as they did. When things you depend on get swept away, something interesting happens. Something cracks open for a short time. And if you can catch that moment and stay in it, and talk with others through it, it can change everything. It is actually quite hopeful in an odd way. There's a moment of almost freedom where the possibility of something larger peeks through, where we look at everyone and everything around us for a few brief days as the most precious thing we've ever laid eyes on. A small but essential piece of God that is here only for a short time, that once gone will never come back in quite the same way. For a few short days, you put aside the tense New England politeness. For a few short days, you allow yourselves to hang on tight to each other and let tears come out. And suddenly, you have this gift of being able to see each other clearly for the completely lovable, warm, affectionate, cooperative, brilliant people that you are. And from what I hear from those of you that I know in this congregation, you have done exceedingly well with this. There is a little problem, is that that moment tends to pass and we go back to our usual ways. As white New Englanders, mostly white New Englanders here, we have this unspoken, unexamined assumption about everyone around us. This is not true in every other culture. We have this funny assumption that we don't even think of because it's so much part of us that we don't notice it. The assumption is that people are essentially a bother to each other. We learned this very early on. If someone isn't bothering you, then it seems very likely that you're bothering them. work on developing a friendship with you. There are two possible scenarios that probably come to mind when you think of this. One, you're bothering them. Two, they're going to become a big bother to you. There is one way around this that I have found very helpful in my own life. And that is to start by trading time equally. It's a little artificial, but it works. And also to keep at least some of your focus on what is going well. Get a timer, literally a timer, and say, I'll tell you my life story for half an hour or an hour. And when the timer goes off, we'll do something different for a couple of minutes, and then we'll set it again. And you tell me your life story. Or, I do this with a friend. I'll talk to you about what's going on in my life, including what's going well, while we walk up the hill. And you talk to me about what's going well in your life while we walk down the hill. Actually, I do it the other way around, because it's much easier to talk when you're going down. The Springfield Unitarian Church took on this project of just getting together, everyone in the congregation getting together with somebody once a month to just exchange life stories. And they still come up to me and tell me how much closer they're all getting to each other and what a difference this silly little exercise has made in their lives. One of the reasons we are a bother to other people is that white New Englanders like to fix other people. It's the underside of all of our good works in the world. We have done wonderful things in the world, and a lot of it has looked a bit like fixing. So the other little trick when you're getting to know people, when you're listening, when you're trading time, is to trust other people's minds to come up with their own answers. You don't have to take care of anybody. You don't have to give them advice. You don't have to let them move in with you. You can just keep them company. You can just listen and ask open-ended questions and be curious about them. Curiosity is the opposite of judgment. We don't heal people by putting ourselves above or below them. We heal each other by getting in close to each other and saying, I'm going to fight alongside you against all the patterns that keep you from remembering your own true nature. By saying to them, no, sweetie, I can't let you do that to yourself because I love you. We also think, as white New Englanders, that we own things, which kind of translates into that fixing other people. We think that the river destroyed our houses, and that therefore, I've heard people saying, we should change the flow of the river so it doesn't happen again. But the river was just doing what rivers do, flowing, expanding, moving. We chose to build our lives along that river. And that is the terrible, wonderful price of having done that. So how do we build our lives? Along the river, or along the river of God that flows through our lives unexpectedly, so that when things happen, we are complete and whole, that we have the essentials. We have gratitude, we have each other, we still have the beautiful riverbed soil to grow food on. It's just not in exactly the same place that it was. It might be a little further down the river at your neighbor's house. Are you friends with them? Can you grow your food there? You have done well with this and staying close to each other. I want you to keep on hanging on tight to each other. I want you to keep being messy with each other. I want you to keep putting off for one more day that slight worry that maybe you're bothering someone, and the fear that this person, if you let them cry in your arms again, is going to become dependent on you. The tears that come are sadness flowing out of you, and the more tears you can shed in each other's arms, and the harder you can laugh together as you talk about your crazy fears of what else is coming this month, the longer you will remember this gift. This tender time when your hearts and arms were open to each other. Don't go back to being polite and distant too soon. Better yet, don't ever go back. As white New Englanders, it's as if we have a little few extra elbows that other cultures don't have. It's a little harder to hug people in close and relax. And it's no wonder, because many of us, when we were born, were put somewhere far, far away from human contact. We were fed out of plastic bottles. Just at the moment when we relaxed and fell asleep in our mother's arms, we were put down in a crib in a quiet room with no breathing, no warmth, no milky smell around us. We've done well considering what was done to us. Soften those elbows a little bit. Let people get a little closer. You will learn to like it. You were created to enjoy the feeling of human flesh against you. We're mammals. We like that. Cynthia Bourgeault, a Christian mystic writer, writes, "The kingdom of heaven," or I would say the queendom of heaven, "is not higher, but aliver. It is right here, just on the other side of that terror we can just scarcely bear. The only thing lacking to embrace it is the depth of our hearts. You were born knowing that everything is amazing. You good white New Englanders, and a few lovely people of color who are brave enough to join all these pokey elbows. You were born knowing that everything is God. You were born with brilliant, clear minds, warm, loving hearts, and a sense of wonder and curiosity. You were born expecting those around you to welcome you with open arms and have those same clear qualities fully intact. Many of you were disappointed. But you were also born with a natural healing capacity for when you get hurt. When you allow yourself to cry, to tremble, to laugh, to yawn, to blush, especially in the warm mammalian company of somebody who understands this natural process and isn't worried about you, isn't going to try to medicate you or lock you up for having feelings. You can easily release those feelings of disappointment, fear, anger, embarrassment. St. Francis and St. Clare used to have crying dates together, where they would sit and weep together, knowing how healing tears are, and how after a good cry, God's presence in all things is so much clearer. Your heart is so much more open, and your mind can actually think straight and come up with solutions to things that seemed insoluble. The basic nature of all human beings is affectionate and cooperative, and warm and loving. Anytime someone isn't acting that way, anytime a society isn't acting that way, it's because of feelings they haven't had a chance to release. Galway Kinnell, in his poem St. Francis and the Sow, in which St. Francis is talking to a female pig about how lovely she is. Galway Kinnell writes, "Sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness." So while your hearts are still open, Pick a few people here who you would like to do that for. Maybe the people who are a little bit on the edges, who leave a little too soon. Pick a few people to reteach them their own loveliness. When patients come to see me, they see me as God. They think, she is so beautiful and amazing. She knows way more than I do about what to do here. She can heal anything, especially when you're an alternative provider. People think, that mystical Eastern acupuncture must be the thing that's going to fix everything. And they're right. I am God, a small but essential part of God. So, as God, the only reasonable response for me is to look back at them and see that they too are God. I think to myself, they are so beautiful and amazing. They know way more than I do about what is needed here. They can heal anything. In healing, we remember who we are. We are a microcosm of the universe. We are part of our ecosystem, and the ecosystem is also within us. Part of what makes that riverbed soil that's now down at our neighbor's house so valuable is that it is teeming with billions of different microorganisms that help things to grow and thrive. Every microorganism has an essential job to do, just as each one of us has a small but essential job to do here. When we treat the soil with pesticides and herbicides, we are interfering in a complex process of deep collaboration between microorganisms. And we create a sterile rather than a fertile environment. Our healthcare system is also based on valuing sterility, which was a great idea early on for a very small part of things. But now it's expanded out into a way where a nurse who knows that two best friends are in hospital rooms next door to each other can't tell them that because of laws about privacy. The sterility is translated into social sterility. When we treat the soil with pesticides and herbicides, we are also creating a chemically dependent world where we actually need human-made medication for our soil in order just to grow our food. Within our digestive tracts, getting back to this, we're not allowed to talk about in church, we also have billions of microorganisms that help us to grow and thrive. We have 10 times more bacterial cells in our bodies than human cells. Most of the chemical serotonin, which is that chemical that helps you feel good and keeps your mood up, is actually produced by the bacteria in our guts. Science is now talking about our gut as our second brain. It's so important in how we feel and how we think. Antibiotics are incredible life-saving drugs, and I'm glad to have them in my world. They've saved my life several times. But overusing them, just like pesticides and herbicides in farming, creates a sterile rather than a fertile environment in our guts and interferes with the deep collaboration of microorganisms within us, and can, if taken too much or too long, create a depression that literally takes the joy out of life. Are we feeling the despair of our bacterial allies as they die off within us? Pre-industrial traditional diets that kept people healthy for thousands of years always included many lacto-fermented foods full of living organisms. Is there something that they knew that we have forgotten? In biologist Lynn Margulis's work, she showed that evolution happened not so much by competition and survival of the fittest, but by interdependence and cooperation. She showed through DNA that different parts of our cells were originally separate organisms. She showed that those separate organisms got together and worked it out and started living cooperatively. and from that, life evolved. We are cooperative beings within our very selves. As we evolved, many other species, from the bacteria in our guts to the dogs by our sides, co-evolved along with us so that we could all thrive together. How do we approach daily life, our care of the environment, and our care for each other in ways that honor the deep, collaborative work that created us, that permeates us, and that surrounds us? Healing is a process of remembering who we are and where we came from. Health is never forgetting again.